So my name's Gillian Cheryl. My pronouns are she, her. I am a junior at Hellgate High School, and I am one of the co-founders at Amplify Montana Youth. I will pass it over to Ali.
All right, my name is Ali Caudle. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a sophomore at Hellgate High School. Monica, would you like to introduce yourself?
Great. Yeah. So I'm Monica Tranel and I am an attorney. I'm working here in Missoula and I am a candidate for the Public Service Commission District 4.
Awesome. Yeah. So I mentioned this earlier, but I'll kind of just say it for everyone watching this video. Today, we are going to focus on what the PSC is, what it does, and why it should matter to young people around the state. So we're going to kind of start off with the basics here, Monica, and then Ali and I will kind of just popcorn back and forth with
Yeah.
questions. But what is the PSC and why is it so important?
What is the Public Service Commission? So every state has what they call a utility commission. In some states, it's known as a Public Utility Commission. That's a little bit more logical. In Montana, it's known as the Public Service Commissions. So these commissions were originally the railroad commissions. And what they were created to do was to regulate the natural monopoly of the railroads. So if you think about it, it wouldn't make very much sense to have two railroads running side by side across Montana to haul grain, right? So there's one, and those railroads, when they were first built, could charge whatever they wanted. And they could set whatever working conditions they wanted. And so because they were monopolies, natural monopolies being, it just doesn't make sense and it's not really possible for somebody to come in and compete with that infrastructure. There were two things that happened. In the late 1800s and the early 1900s, we had labor unions and collective bargaining to protect the workers and allow them to have the ability to have a collective voice, collective bargaining in setting their wages, and utility commissions, which were created to protect you, the consumer, of the goods that those monopolies were delivering. So in the early days, it was railroads. And it was farmers hauling grain, and to protect those farmers so that they could get a fair price, the railroad commissions were born. And then over time, they became the utility commission. The other natural monopolies being the telephones and electricity, gas, heat, water, and now we have garbage and transportation. So kind of if you think of all of the basic life services that you need to live, that's what the utility commission protects you from, that provider being able to gouge you. So when you go home and you turn your lights on, when you charge your phone and you plug it into the wall and you charge it, the electricity that comes and what you pay for that is what the commission sets. So you interact with the commission all day, every day, and you or your family pay that bill every month. So this commission, as little known as it is to most people, is fundamentally a part of your day-to-day life in a way that almost no other government entity really touches you in a practical way every day, like the commission does. So that's kind of just a basic overview of what it is and why it was created.
Thank you. You kind of touched on this in that response, but why should young people care about what the commission does?
Well, young people should care about everything that their government does, and especially now. So if you go back to the age of the oligarchs, the late 1800s and the early 1900s, do you know the labor conditions that were in place then? It was terrible. They had young kids as young as 8 years old working 14-hour days. And the only reason that stopped was because of collective bargaining and because people got together and said, we need to have a collective voice so we can stand up to these monopolies and these oligarchs. So if you anticipate ever leaving your parents' home and having an apartment and paying the rent and paying utilities, then you should care, because the rates that you will pay, which is a very, very key part of whether or not you will ever be able to live independently, right, is set by this commission. And you want your government to protect you and to set rates that are fair and that won't be gouging you and protecting the monopolies.
Awesome. So what path led you to run for the Public Service Commission?
So I guess I just also want to say and back up, because I was really focusing on rates. If I can go back to that last answer, I was really focusing on the economics of it and the rates. And that is what the commission does. It's about the lever that the commission has is money, and it sets rates that the utilities can charge. But the other piece of it that is really, really important for young people to understand is the resources that the providers like Northwestern, the electricity companies, the investor-owned monopolies use in their resource stack, their portfolio. So whether they're using gas resources or coal, whether those resources are priced appropriately compared to wind and solar, and whether we move to renewable resources is a huge role that the commission has to play. So to the extent that young people care about our planet and climate change, then this agency has a really significant impact on what kinds of resources are being used to provide the electricity that you use every day at your home. So if you care about climate change, if you care about where our planet is going, if you care about your future, then you really need to care about this office, because who we elect will really drive what kind of resources are being allowed to be in the resource stack going forward and the impact that has on our climate. So I'm sorry, Gilly, I kind of backed up and—
Oh no, sorry about that. Didn't mean to cut you off there. But yeah, thank you for that. So the last question, what path led you to run for the PSC?
Right. Well, okay. So I grew up in Eastern Montana in the country with my 9 brothers and sisters, and we were always taught to contribute something positive. And so I was a staff attorney at the Public Service Commission, and I also worked for the Consumer Council, protecting you as your ratepayer advocate. I've been in private practice for a number of years, and my clients are renewable energy developers. So the turbines that you see in the picture behind my head here, this is one of my clients' wind farms in Stillwater County. And you'll see it if you're driving to Billings on the interstate. If you look north at Reed Point, you'll see this project. So I was at a hearing last summer in front of the commission, and we were trying to get a wind farm built. And one of the commissioners said to me in the middle of this hearing to get a wind farm built, said, "Those wind turbines are dangerous. They fly off and kill people. They spew chemicals into the air. They're just really terrible. Coal is much better." And I could not believe what I was hearing. And another commissioner said, "The science is clear, the climate's getting colder." And I was just absolutely appalled. And my client looked at me and said, "We don't have to come to Montana. We can go anywhere." And I just said, you know what? We need systemic change. All my life, when I was your age, I always believed that the system would work. And now I realize it's not working. And we need people to step up and to fight for us and to protect the system so that you have the democracy that I got from my parents. I have 3 daughters, and I want them to have a democracy and a planet. And so I decided we need people in office who know what they're doing, who have experience, who have the ability to run the agency. And I decided it's my turn to step to the front of the line. So I'm doing this for my daughters, for you, for your generation, so that you have what I got, a democracy and a planet.
Thank you. What experience do you have? Why do you think you're qualified for this position?
Well, I answered that, I think, a little bit in my last response. So I'm an attorney, and I have been practicing in front of the commission in one form or another for 20 years. I was a staff attorney at the commission, where my job was to advise the commission in their decisions and to draft orders and to get things out, to write legislation and to write rules. So I have that very direct experience with the commission itself. I've also practiced in front of the commission. So the commission is very, very technical work. I mean, how do you price resources? How do you do utility rate regulation? It's complex work. And the only way that you, the citizens of Montana, will really be protected is if you have representatives who know how those companies work, who know where they, are going to make money. So 39 states require an advanced degree to qualify to serve on the commission. Montana is not one of those states. So as an attorney, I'm uniquely qualified to ask questions of the companies who come in and ask for their rates to be set. I have gone toe-to-toe with them. I have sued them. I've cross-examined them. And I know the stories they tell. And I will fight for you. I've been doing it, and I want to continue to do it.
Awesome. Thank you. So you've kind of mentioned this a little bit, but what is the role of the PSC in confronting climate change?
So to the extent that the Public Service Commission sets the rates that utilities get when they bring a certain resource into their portfolio, the commission can incentivize or allow the utilities to promote one kind of a resource over another. So right now we know that Northwestern is making a lot of money off of Colstrip. So I think the role that the commission plays, the statutory mandate of the commission, is to set rates that are just and reasonable. So what does that mean? It means that when Northwestern wants to bring Colstrip into its resource portfolio, they don't make more money than is just and reasonable. And right now, this is just a very, very rough example, but to give you kind of a concrete, sort of illustration, that what we are paying for Colstrip is about $75 a megawatt hour. And for that same megawatt hour of wind generation, we're paying $25. So setting the rates like that is what the commission has done. And when you have rates like that, Northwestern is going to want more coal because they make more money off of it. So the role that the commission plays is to make the economics of wind and solar passed on to you make sense so that we have more of those and that we transition to renewable energy because it's priced right.
Thank you. What will be your first priority if elected?
My first priority on day one is to walk into the commission and return and restore a level of professionalism and of competence. So the current staff need to know that they have elected leaders who know what they're doing and who will work with them. And also we need to understand that being grown-ups and to eliminate the noise and the childish behavior that has gone on at the commission right now, that needs to end today, day one. So I will set, I think that we would have regular briefings with the press. Right now, this commission has sued the Billings Gazette, refusing to provide information that has been requested. A lawsuit they'll lose, and they know they'll lose. But, and that's the wrong way to go. So my first priorities are to professionalize the commission, have transparency, have regular briefings, and to bring that information back to you. So these things should not be so complicated that you don't feel like you can ask questions about what's going on there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think that's actually all the questions we have for today. We're trying to keep this one a little shorter, just kind of give people an idea of what it is you'll be doing if elected. But thank you so much, Monica, for being here with us today. To anyone watching this video, if you are 18 or going to be 18 by the primary, please vote. Doesn't matter for who, just get out and vote and register. So that's my little pitch for the end of this. But yeah, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Make your voice heard. You've got one, so use it.